Right, folks, so we didn't manage to find Tingana, but we have managed to find a pack of painted dogs. Painted dogs, wild dogs, as the two different names that people do give them. Locally, we will call them wild dogs, or Madash is the local nickname. But I do know that in some places they call them painted dogs. Now there's about 10 individuals in the area. They're scattered around a little bit. They were on the move and they've all gone to ground now. And there's a couple of game viewers with us because this is obviously a very exciting sighting. And now remember that we are open to the Kruger National Park, so these animals can come and go as they please, and which is very exciting for us because sometimes they come through our concession of the reserve, which is what has happened this morning. So it seems they've been on the move and now they're taking a little bit of a rest. Some lying up in the shade, even though mostly we are in the shade of the clouds anyway. Yeah, those massive ears, eh? Fantastic for listening out. Comment coming through from Octo Girly. I don't think I've ever seen wild dogs lying down. It's not a common sight. Excuse me, it's not a common sight, is it? Wild dogs are generally on the move and they very rarely actually take to ground and rest. Nick asking a question, do painted dogs bark or howl? They've got more like a yelp, and there's yelps and squeals. There's little squeals that we did hear there, very high pitch, and they've also got the hoo call, we call it, hoo call, because it is like a hoo, hoo, almost like an owl sound. It's very contact calling each other. So no, they don't bark per se or howl. One's got a bit of an itchy bum there. But wild dogs, they range between about 20 and 30 kilograms, so not particularly heavy animals, and they are made purely for speed and endurance. They're not as fast as cheetah per se, so they're not totally designed for speed as such, but they are a mixture between speed and endurance. And they can have massive litters of pups, between 2 and 22 pups in a litter, so quite a lot. And they live for about 12, 13 years old, as would your normal domestic dog. Similar age to that of a dog a similar size. It's a good age, 12, 13 years old. And lovely that they've graced us with their presence. Now, a pack this size can eat a lot of meat, and they can go through 2 to 3 impala a day. So they will hunt daily, this pack, and you wonder if they've already killed and fed this morning. It's quite possible. It's not a very enjoyable sight to see when they do actually kill something. They're not animals like the cats, the lions and leopard that go for the throat and go for the kill. They are not as friendly in the kill, if I can say. Ellie Belly asking a question if wild dogs would mate with stray dogs or domestic dogs. I think it's possible, but I think the behavior of these wild dogs is quite aggressive, and I don't know if a domestic dog would be able to fit in with their behavior. I think there would be conflict, and I think that the stray dog would probably be in a bit of trouble, because generally if they're not from the pack, it's quite difficult. They don't really take lightly to outsiders. So my impression is that if they had to come across a stray dog, they would probably kill it or run away from it. But I don't think that there would be enough interaction for them to have time to actually mate or breed. But it is an interesting question. It's probably possible. If there were some isolated wild dogs, they could possibly breed with domestic dogs, but I do think that you would have a sterile offspring. But it is a good question. I'm not 100% sure. I just believe that from their behavior, I think it would be very difficult for them to accept a domestic or stray dog. TA asking a good question there as well. Why do wild dogs smell so badly? For me, it's a lot to do with the amount of food that they eat and the amount of meat that they get into contact with, and blood, and it's a little bit to do with that sort of rotting meat and blood. But also, like your domestic dogs, we like to wash our dogs because they do start to stink, and if you leave your domestic dog for long enough, he would start to stink quite heavily as well. And it's quite natural. That is their natural smells. They also do have anal glands, which, that dog there, yes, I said he had an itchy bum, but he was probably, they do get a bit of an irritation around that anal gland, and that it is also for scent marking, and domestic dogs have this as well. Now, this assists in putting their smell around, and they're gregarious animals. They do need to live together. They live in packs. So it's important for them to keep these smells, and we constantly trying to get rid of it. It's one of the reasons why when you do wash a dog, immediately it runs outside and gets as dirty as possible, because it probably thinks that nice perfumed shampoo that we've put on it, in his mind, that stinks. And he wants to get his natural smells back, because that's normal between dogs. And their nose is sometimes 300 times stronger than ours in terms of the hounds. So you must imagine the strength of the smell coming through there. Nancy asking the question, what is the major source of death with wild dogs? Nancy, I would say mostly is from lions. Lions, hyena. If they find a den, they will kill all the pups, and a very high mortality rate. Now look at this, guys. This is a little bit of group bonding here, as you do with domestic dogs. As soon as one dog goes and pees on a pole, they all go and stand in line and pee on the same spot. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if they all come and pee on the same spot. They are checking who's who in the zoo, the status of everybody in the social structure. There I say again, having a scratch on the bottom, but that mostly to do with that anal gland. It can become quite irritating, and they do need to milk it, per se. And they're all urinating on the same spot. So very lovely social, gregarious behavior going on here. Constant touching, little whining. This is all constantly re-establishing their social place within the pack. And that's why, folks, at home we have our domestic dogs. If we keep a domestic dog on its own, we are taking it away from its natural sort of a way of being, and that is in groups. So when one dog is on its own, it starts to exhibit weird behavior because it's not allowed to be in a group as they are instinctively and naturally in the wild. Atomic X asking the question, can wild dogs use their ears like bat-eared fox do? Yes, absolutely. They are almost like satellite dishes. They are reining in the signals, the sounds coming through the bush, but a bat-eared fox using it to pick up on small things under the ground, insects and little rodents possibly, whereas wild dogs, they're using that to pick up on sounds of game, antelope moving through the thickets. So it is a very similar use, however it's for a different prey. And you'll see bat-eared foxes directing those ears predominantly at the ground, whereas wild dogs directing it normally more horizontally towards picking up if there's lions in the area, and mostly to do with prey. So, but yes, very similar in size in comparison to the body. Massive ears. So they'll be hunting mostly with sight and ears. TA asking the question, is it the alpha pair that mate, or are they all allowed to mate? It's generally, there is that very strong social structure, and they will have an alpha pair, and you will have subordinates, females, that will also come into heat, and that will normally get mated with by the alpha male, but it is very structured. Very, very structured, and they keep to that, and the youngsters will also be kept in line according to that very structured approach, the alpha pair. So fascinating to watch gregarious animals like this, and they constantly reaffirm those bonds by grooming, touching each other, nuzzling, calling, almost constant greetings. And it goes right through to where when you come home, I mean, you can go leave your house for 5 minutes and you come back, you open your gate and your dog greets you as if you have been away for a month. It's almost identical. And there, that one turning over, very relaxed, but that greeting is constant re-establishment of the bond. So it's not just that he's feeling like saying hello all over again. Dean asking the question, is it true that they have a high kill rate? Absolutely. Once wild dogs pick out a prey and head out on the hunt on that animal, the chances are excellent that they will kill it. So it's probably an 80 to 90% success rate, and it's only your older wily animals that generally have some tactics to get away. And I was watching a Nyala bull which did just that. I told the story a little while ago, but he got cornered in some water, and he eventually tired the wild dogs out, and they left him in the water. But generally, once they pick out a prey, his minutes or seconds are numbered, because they will generally have a leader who chases, but very hard, behind the prey, whether it's an impala or whatever antelope it might be, and he chases hard up behind it. And once he loses a little bit of steam, it would be the next that takes over. So it's almost wolf-like in the way that they do hunt, and so they keep the chase up at maximum speed throughout. Alright folks, so we're going to continue sitting here with these wild dogs. It's too precious to leave. But in the meantime, let's cross over to Steph, who I'm not sure exactly what he has, but I'm sure it's very interesting nonetheless. So folks, from jumping beans to flat dogs. I was talking about flat dogs earlier at the Chitwa pan, but these are real flat dogs, not crocodiles, and they're nicely positioned up in the shade, even though away from the trees. We're still in the shade with these clouds around, but they are totally relaxed. Ellie Belly asking the question, do wild dogs live in underground dens? Ellie Belly, they don't live in underground dens, but they will use underground dens, especially when they have pups. So they will definitely use, very similar to that of hyenas and sometimes lion. One of their favorites is a termite mound where an aardvark has made a big hole, and they'll also go in there into the chamber at the bottom. It needs to be very quiet in there and a nice secluded spot, and then that is what they will use for the den site. And obviously with those young, when they're very young, they will remain at that den site, and then that's when they're very vulnerable to attack from lions and hyena. So the site needs to be well chosen, and the pack needs to be on guard. But that is when they have a high mortality rate, is around the den site, especially if lions pick up on that. They will race to go and climb in and kill as many pups as they can, if not all of them, and any adults they can too, because it's all competition. Predators don't like other predators around, regardless of what kind. Caracal won't like jackals, jackals won't like hyena, hyena don't like lions, lions don't like wild dogs, and the same goes for all of them. So it's quite a competitive environment, and even the predators need to be on their toes. It's not only the antelope that need to be scared of predators, predators need to be scared of predators. Okie dokie folks, I hope that was a lovely ending to the Djuma part of the drive, and we're going to sit here a little bit longer, but thank you for joining us, and we're going to cross over to the Mara with Brent, and we'll see you this afternoon.